big scandal? I guess you could call it a scandal. Things are now heating up again between India and China over a disputed border and, of course, technically what China calls South Tibet and what the rest of the world calls the Arunachal Pradesh in India.
Yeah, I also think that it's funny that they've started calling it South Tibet because they don't use the word Tibet anymore.
Yeah, Xizang.
They want to use, because it worked for them with Xinjiang, because Xinjiang, which in Chinese means new
region, new territory.
That have been a part of China since ancient times.
Yeah.
Forever.
But people don't really refer to it as East Turkestan because the historical East Turkestan was also slightly different and only lasted.
Yeah, but the rebranding of Tibet as, Xizang.
So the CCP was able to take over the search term Xinjiang, kind of. Like if you typed in Xinjiang on YouTube, there was definitely a concerted effort, at first by state-run media, to just put out a bunch of stuff about Xinjiang so they could kind of like take all of that, because Uyghurs were more likely to write something about like Uyghurs or like East Turkestan or whatever. And so they were able to like just take over that term completely. And then they started having all of these, YouTubers go to Xinjiang.
The truth about Xinjiang. It's great.
There's no genocide here. So then that started to take over the space. So now they're trying to do the same thing with Tibet, where they're like, well, we're not going to call it Tibet. We're going to call it Xizang, and we're going to make everybody call it Xizang, and we're going to own Xizang, which I think is a little harder to do with Tibet.
Because there's so much cultural weight to Tibet. There was all the Free Tibet concerts.
Yeah, all the Free Tibet stuff. But even before that, like Tibet existed as a political entity for so long.
Yeah.
And, people
and the Dalai
know where, people know, I don't know if they know where Tibet is exactly, but they know that there is a place called Tibet and the Dalai Lama and all these things.
Yeah, they have an idea of it.
Nobody
has any thoughts about Xizang.
Yeah, well, also, people didn't really have any shots about Xinjiang, which allowed the CCP to do that. Yeah. But Xizang is not, I don't think it's going to work for them as well. But anyway, so all the CCP, media, when they talk about Arunachal Pradesh, are calling it Zangnan, which means South Tibet.
Yeah.
But they're using the pinyin, like they're using the Chinese for it. So, yeah.
And so what happened was the border between China and India, they fought a war over that border. There's constantly some kind of clash going on there. It's a hot spot. Some guests we've had said like that could be where a war happens before Taiwan even. Mm-hmm. But so this woman from Arunachal Pradesh was she was traveling to Japan, but she transited through the Shanghai airport. Unfortunately, we'll put up a picture of her, but she looks, well, Shelley, say this for me. I'm colorblind.
Well, my suspicion based on her name, it's just Primo Wangzhongdak.
You just made that up, didn't you?
No. I don't think I pronounced it right, but I did not make up her name. Is that she's probably ethnically Tibetan.
Yeah.
But she has an Indian passport.
She's an Indian citizen. She has an Indian passport.
Well, from Arunachal Pradesh.
Right. Yes.
And if you listen to her speak, her accent definitely sounds more like an Indian accent than a Chinese accent.
But the point is, as she was transiting through the Shanghai airport, they took a look at her passport, Arunachal Pradesh. Why, that's part of China. And you look Chinese. This passport is invalid. You're Chinese. This is you're traveling from China. Arunachal Pradesh, it's part of China, always has been. And what was supposed to be a 3-hour layover became an 18-hour delay that only got resolved when Indian officials had to come to the airport and basically get her through. But so this has reignited, it touches on the border conflict with India and China. It touches on the issues going on with Xizang.
Indian people are really upset about this because this is it's such a stupid and unsubtle way for the CCP to claim Arunachal Pradesh by like essentially detaining an Indian citizen from that region and claiming that
Yeah, I mean,
that it's like
Arunachal Pradesh is obviously administered by India, which is why this woman had an Indian passport.
Yeah, there is a governor of Arunachal Pradesh who is like upset.
And before China, I think, claimed a little less of that area than they currently do.
Yeah, they're definitely expanding. Like they have built 90 villages along the Arunachal Pradesh border over the past couple of years.
So it sounds like what they're doing with like
in Bhutan.
in Nepal and Bhutan, where they're like trying to like edge into, like they're just building more villages closer and then over the line.
And it's like, well, it's ours.
Yeah.
It's like not eminent domain. What are the squatters' rights?
Yeah, that's the opposite of eminent domain.
Yeah.
Since it's not the government.
It's not the government. Yeah. It's squatters' rights. That's the policy of the CCP.
I mean, a lot of these regions are like pretty unpopulated, like harsh, like,
And they built something there, and like, what are you gonna do?
and like maybe no one will notice.
What are you gonna do, Bhutan? Are you gonna challenge the Chinese Communist Party on these villages?
we're big and you're small. How dare you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that is basically what I forget who said it, but what like a Chinese official said. He said there are big countries and there are little countries, and that's just the reality.
yeah. Well, the reality is also that the Communist Party came to power in China with the philosophy of kill people and take their stuff, right? They come in, they take land, they kill the landlords or arrest them or kick them out or whatever, right? And they just take it. They take the land, they take the land, they take the land.
You're talking about America, right? Killing people and taking their land.
So I'm not Chris. Shut up. So
That should be the response I do on Twitter to all those people. Just shut up.
So the CCP comes in with essentially like a guiding philosophy of take everybody's land. So what do you expect that same party to do internationally? Like not take other people's land? Like there's an article, an opinion article that came out in the New York Times a few days ago.
that was
called something
awful.
about the Thucydides trap.
First of all, I think the Thucydides trap it's not the correct way to look at the U.S. and China.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what the Thucydides trap is.
So do you want to explain it?
Yeah, so there's like when you have an existing a hegemonic power and then a rising power, there's going to be inevitable conflict.
It's like it's a analogy made about Athens and Sparta and why they got into a war is because there was one dominant established power and then a rising power. And so those two powers got into the Thucydides trap where they were like forced to, destined to like go to war because one was up and coming and one was established and they were going to butt heads.
No.
But the problem I have with the analysis of this in the New York Times when it comes to China, among many things, is that
just for clarity, it's saying that the U.S. is the big power,
Yeah.
and China's the rising power.
China's the rising power. And so there have been a lot of pro-engagement people who have been arguing about this for many years, that like the U.S. needs to avoid this Thucydides trap. That like we can't, it's kind of a way to be like, we can't like, let's not fall into the trap of accidental war or something because one is but like, it's not even necessarily a correct analysis of what happened with Athens and Sparta in the first place. But I don't know enough about Greek history to like say whether that's correct or not. But I've just seen some other people argue that it's not necessarily the way to look at it. But I think it's definitely not the way to look at it between the U.S. and China. But okay, now talk about this terrible New York Times article.
So my point is, and it's an opinion article, and one thing that's sort of fundamentally problematic is that it cites an MIT report that was like written by people who have very strong connections to the CCP. So like already it's based on a totally bogus report.
That MIT paper, it actually was published in an MIT journal, but the people who wrote it weren't from MIT. But it was about how, like, actually, if you analyze Chinese government, publications and stuff like that, they don't want to take
Right here,
Chinese state-run media says they're not.
Here's the quote. China is a status quo power concerned with regime stability, and it remains more inwardly focused than externally oriented, right? And it's so
that is like been the like establishment like idea of China for a long time, though,
right,
right?
and
Yeah.
it's so wrong. And this is where it ties back into India. They're trying to take Indian territory. And this is not an anomaly. This is part of a pattern that started after the Communist Party took more and more land until they controlled all of mainland China. Then they took Xinjiang in the end of 49, shortly after Mao declared, communist China, People's Republic. Then they sort of did a partnership with Tibet and then tricked it into essentially they took it over. They took over southern Mongolia. They took over eventually Hong Kong, which is mostly through diplomacy, but a little bit of tear gas.
But Matt, these are all internal things,
Right. And Arunachal Pradesh will be considered an internal matter.
Same with Taiwan.
Taiwan is they call it
this
internal matter.
New York Times article, like
specifically said that they'll stop after they take Taiwan. And
yeah,
it's
that
like,
Taiwan's just an internal matter.
No,
so.
like China will label it like these islands of Japan, all of Japan. Oh, that's an internal matter. Korea,
Solomon
that's an
Islands.
Yeah, the Vietnam, that's an internal matter because it's been part of Chinese territory since ancient times. And it's so frustrating for me to read this stuff. And people are such freaking idiots. You do not understand. The Chinese Communist Party came to power by killing people and taking their stuff. And then saying, it just belongs to us, to the People's Republic of China. And it's a lie that gets used as the fundamental basis for future lies, which gets used for future lies. And then all these idiot Western academics are like, China's just only concerned about internal matters. No, they're literally killing people and taking their stuff, and then they're calling it internal.
These intellectuals, they just, we could round them up and send them to the countryside so they can do some real manual labor. Learn a thing or two. This is just one clip from our longer podcast. Do you like this kind of discussion? Then click below and watch it and download it all at ChinaUncensored.tv. When you subscribe to our website, you'll also be part of my exclusive China Uncensored 50 Cent Army, and we can stand up to the CCP together. The link is below.